He pretended to be single at work for 3 years, so I made sure his office finally met his secret girlfriend. 3 years ago, on the day Mark accepted the senior account manager position at Pinnacle Strategies, he came home, loosened his tie, poured us both a glass of the cheap Malbec we kept for celebrations, and said with absolute seriousness, "Babe, I think it's better if no one at the office knows about us." I laughed at first, thinking it was one of his dry jokes about corporate culture, but his face stayed solemn. He explained the optics. The firm was old school. Promotion tracks favored the stable family man archetype. Yet the partners also loved the narrative of the hungry single guy who lived for the job. No distractions, no maternity leave risks for hypothetical future wives, no spousal complaints about late nights. "If they think I'm unattached," he said, "they'll throw the biggest accounts my way. I can climb faster. For us. For the life we want later." I stared at him across the kitchen island, the city lights flickering through our 16th floor window, and felt the first small crack form in the foundation we'd been building since college. I asked why he couldn't just be honest. Plenty of married people thrive in sales. He shook his head. "You don't understand the locker room talk. The way they size you up. Single means available means promotable. Married means settled means safe bet but not the star." I didn't argue that night. I let him kiss my forehead, let him promise it was temporary, let him slide the ring off my finger before he left for his first day, and tuck it into the velvet box we kept in the nightstand drawer like contraband. For the first 6 months, I played along gamely. I stopped posting couple photos on social media. He'd already scrubbed any trace of me from his profiles. Answered unknown numbers with a breezy, "This is Mia," instead of "Hey, love." And when his colleagues threw him surprise birthday drinks at O'Malley's, I stayed home binge watching true crime while he texted me apologies and beer emojis. The lie grew roots quietly. He started winning pitch after pitch. The corner office came faster than either of us expected. Bonuses rolled in. We upgraded from the one-bedroom to a sleek two-bedroom with a view of the river. I told myself it was strategic, temporary, a means to an end. But the ends kept moving. Year 2, he got invited to the executive retreat in Aspen. Spouses weren't barred, but the single guys always closed the biggest deals up there, he said. So I spent that week alone in our new apartment, rearranging furniture I didn't love yet, wondering when later would arrive. Colleagues began asking him pointed questions at happy hours. "Still flying solo, Mark? No special someone keeping you warm?" He'd laugh that easy laugh I used to think was only for me. Shrug. Say something about being married to the job. I stopped going to company picnics, holiday parties, even the casual Friday lunches he sometimes invited me to, under the guise of a friend from marketing. Each time I declined. The crack widened. By year 3, the lie had calcified into something structural. He wore the single guy persona like a second skin, flirting just enough to keep the myth alive without crossing lines he could be caught on. Dropping hints about late-night Tinder swipes he never actually made, letting the junior analyst set him up on blind dates he always canceled last minute with plausible excuses. I watched from the sidelines, the invisible girlfriend slowly turning into the secret he protected more fiercely than our actual relationship. The ring stayed in the drawer. We fought about it twice, once screaming, once in cold, measured sentences, but both times he promised, soon, promised, the next promotion would lock in his future. Our future. Then came the email. The firm was hosting its annual client appreciation gala at the Grand Meridian Ballroom, black tie, open bar, significant others explicitly invited for the first time in company history. Mark forwarded it to me with a single line, "We'll figure it out." No apology, no plan, just, "We'll figure it out." That night I lay awake beside him, listening to his steady breathing, and felt the last thread of patience snap. I didn't want to be figured out. I wanted to be seen. So I made a decision. I called in every favor I had left. I emailed his assistant under a fake name asking for the final headcount and dietary restrictions for the surprise guest package. I booked a gown from the designer sample sale I could never normally afford. I practiced my smile in the mirror until it looked effortless. And on the night of the gala, while Mark was downstairs in the lobby waiting for his Uber alone, because I told him I had a migraine and would stay home, I stepped out of the elevator in emerald silk, hair swept up, the diamond ring I'd rescued from the nightstand drawer now glittering on my left hand, and walked straight into the ballroom where 3 years of his carefully constructed bachelor myth was about to meet its reckoning. Heads turned, whispers started, and there, across the room beside the champagne tower, stood my fiancé, my secret, suddenly staring at the woman he'd spent 3 years pretending didn't exist, as I lifted my glass in a private toast only he could understand. "Cheers to finally meeting your secret girlfriend, darling." The office was about to learn exactly who had been keeping him warm all these years.
The ballroom at the Grand Meridian shimmered under a constellation of crystal chandeliers, every surface polished to reflect the soft glow of candlelight and the sharper flash of champagne flutes. Laughter rolled across the room in practiced waves, the kind that comes from people who know exactly how much volume is acceptable when deals are still being quietly negotiated at the edges of conversation. I paused just inside the double doors, letting the doorman take my coat, feeling the cool air kiss the bare skin of my shoulders before the warmth of too many bodies wrapped around me again. My emerald gown caught the light like deep water, the slit high enough to remind me I'd chosen this dress for impact, not subtlety. The ring on my left hand felt heavier than it had in 3 years. Less like jewelry, more like armor. Across the room, Mark stood with his back to me, mid-sentence with two partners and a cluster of junior execs. His posture relaxed in that tailored tuxedo he bought last spring for client dinners. He was gesturing with the hand that should have worn a wedding band, laughing at something one of the partners said. The same easy charm that had once made me fall for him, now weaponized to maintain a fiction. I didn't rush. I accepted a flute of champagne from a passing tray, took a slow sip, let the bubbles steady the tremor in my fingers. Then I started walking, not straight toward him, circling first, letting the crowd part naturally, letting eyes find me and linger. A woman from HR I'd met once at a holiday party years ago did a double take, her brows lifting in recognition that quickly shifted to confusion. A senior account director I'd only seen in photos on the company intranet nodded politely, then frowned as though trying to place me. Whispers followed like ripples. Who's that with the ring? Isn't that Mark's table? Never seen her before? I kept moving until I was close enough that the group around him began to notice the shift in attention. One of the juniors, Tyler, I think, the one who always posted gym selfies, spotted me first. His eyes widened, flicked to Mark, then back to me, mouth opening in a silent O. Mark turned then, mid-laugh, and the sound died in his throat. For a single heartbeat, his face was perfectly blank. Shock so complete it erased expression. Then color rushed up his neck, red and unmistakable against the crisp white collar. Mia, he said, the word barely audible over the music. I smiled, the one I'd practiced in the mirror until it looked warm instead of lethal. Hi, sweetheart. I stepped into the circle, sliding my arm through his with the casual intimacy of someone who belonged there. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was brutal, and I couldn't find parking. The partners exchanged glances, quick, assessing, the kind that recalculates entire hierarchies in seconds. One of them, Richard, the silver-haired managing partner who'd personally mentored Mark for the last 2 years, cleared his throat. Mark, you've been holding out on us. Introduce us to your fiancé, I supplied smoothly, extending my left hand so the diamond caught every light in the room. Mia Chen. We've been together since college. The word fiancé landed like a dropped glass. Sharp, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. Tyler actually choked on his drink. The other junior stared at Mark like he'd just witnessed a magic trick gone wrong. Richard recovered first, smile tightening at the corners. Well, this is a surprise. A very pleasant one. Mark's kept you quite the secret. Not by choice, I said lightly, squeezing Mark's arm just hard enough for him to feel the warning. He's very dedicated to the firm. Sometimes that dedication comes with creative storytelling. Mark's laugh came out strangled. Mia, maybe we should. No need to step away, Richard interrupted, waving a hand. We're all family here tonight. Or at least we thought we were. The jab was gentle but precise. Mark's face had gone from red to something closer to gray. I turned my smile on the group. He told me the single guy narrative plays better for promotions. I respected it for a while. 3 years is a long while. Tyler coughed again, this time into his fist. One of the other juniors, Sarah, I remembered, looked like she was mentally rewinding every locker room comment she'd ever heard Mark make. Richard studied me for a long moment. Then Mark, then back to me. 3 years, he repeated slowly. That's impressive commitment. To the role. To the job, I corrected, still smiling. Not to honesty. A beat of silence stretched, thick enough to cut. Then Richard chuckled, low, not entirely amused. Well, Mark, it seems we've all been treated to quite the reveal tonight. Perhaps we should let the two of you catch up. He nodded to the others. The group began to disperse with polite murmurs and backward glances. When it was just us, Mark finally spoke, voice pitched low and urgent. What the hell are you doing? I met his eyes without flinching, introducing myself. Since you never did, this isn't the place. It's exactly the place. You brought the lie here every day for 3 years. I'm just bringing the truth to the same address. He ran a hand through his hair, ruining the perfect part. You could have talked to me first. I tried. For 3 years, you kept saying soon. Soon became never. So I stopped waiting. His jaw worked. You're ruining everything. No, I said quietly. You did that when you decided I was a liability instead of a partner. A waiter passed with a tray. I set my empty flute on it without looking away from Mark. I'm not here to burn the place down. I'm here to be seen. After that, you can decide what comes next. Stay single in their eyes and lose me for real, or own the fact that you've had a fiancé waiting in the wings the whole time you were playing Bachelor of the Year. He stared at me, eyes searching for the woman who used to let things slide, who used to believe temporary meant something. She wasn't there anymore. Dance with me, I said, holding out my hand. It wasn't a question. He hesitated, glanced around at the eyes still watching from various corners of the room, then took my hand. We moved to the dance floor, as the band shifted to something slow and jazzy. His arm went around my waist automatically, muscle memory overriding panic. Up close, I could see the fine tremor in his jaw, the way his pulse beat too fast at his throat. They're all talking, he muttered. Good, I whispered back. Let them. Let them see you're not the lone wolf closer they thought. Let them see you're human. Let them see me. He pulled me closer, not out of affection but desperation. What if I lose the promotion track? Then we'll know exactly how much your honesty is worth to them, and to you. The song ended. We stopped moving but didn't let go. Around us, the gala continued. Laughter, clinking glasses, quiet negotiations. But in our small pocket of space, the air felt charged. Final. Mark exhaled, long and shaky. I'm sorry, he said, so quiet I almost missed it. I know, I answered, but sorry isn't enough anymore. I stepped back, slipped my hand from his. Enjoy the rest of your night, Mark. I'll be at the bar if you want to talk like adults. If not, I'll see myself out. I turned and walked away, head high, emerald silk swaying with every step, feeling the weight of 3 years lift just enough to let me breathe. Behind me, I could sense him standing frozen, the myth he'd built cracking open under the bright lights of the ballroom, while I, finally visible, moved toward the rest of my life, rings sparkling, heart bruised but unbroken. The rest of the gala unfolded in slow motion, every second stretched and sharpened by the knowledge that the mask Mark had worn for 3 years now lay in pieces at our feet. I found a high-top table near the edge of the dance floor, far enough from the main clusters to avoid immediate ambush. but close enough that anyone who wanted to gawk could do so without pretending otherwise. I ordered another champagne, non negotiable after that first confrontation, and sipped it slowly, letting the cold fizz ground me while I watched the room react in waves. First came the juniors. Tyler and Sarah drifted over within 10 minutes, trying for casual but failing spectacularly. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting between my ring and my face. So, you and Mark? Like, actually together? For real? I smiled. The same warm one I'd rehearsed. Since sophomore year of college. We met in the library over a shared vending machine coffee that tasted like regret. Sarah laughed, a nervous surprise sound, then covered her mouth. He always said he was single. We set him up on like 3 dates last year. He ghosted all of them. I know, I said evenly. He told me. Said they were nice people and he felt bad. But he couldn't exactly explain why he was canceling. Tyler winced. We thought he was just picky, or maybe secretly gay and not ready to come out. No offense. None taken. Assumptions fill the gaps when people leave them empty. They lingered a moment longer, clearly wanting more details but unsure how to ask without sounding like gossip mongers. I gave them an out. Go enjoy the open bar. Tell the others, I don't bite. They scurried off, already pulling out phones to text the group chat I knew existed. Next came HR, specifically Lauren, the director who'd once sent Mark a birthday card signed by the whole department with a cartoon bachelor pad on the front. She approached alone, glass of red wine in hand, expression carefully neutral. Mia, right? I remember meeting you once at the summer picnic years ago, before Mark rebranded himself. That's me, the one who brought the potato salad everyone raved about. She gave a small, rueful smile. He told us later you were just a friend helping out. Said you were in town for the weekend. I was in town, because I lived here. With him. Lauren sighed, glancing toward the bar where Mark now stood surrounded by 3 partners, gesturing more than usual, trying to explain something with the urgency of a man putting out multiple small fires at once. I'm not going to pretend this doesn't complicate things, she said quietly. The firm has no formal policy against relationships, but the culture, well, you've seen it. The single guy myth isn't just Mark's invention, it's encouraged, quietly, because it sells. I know, I replied. That's why I waited 3 years for him to decide I was worth more than the myth. She studied me for a long beat. You're not here to make a scene, are you? I already made the only scene I needed. The rest is up to him. Lauren nodded once, almost approvingly. Fair enough. If you ever want to talk about how this might affect his trajectory, or yours, my door's open. Off the record, she left her card on the table and walked away. Mark finally extricated himself from the partners about 20 minutes later. His tie was loosened now, hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it. He slid onto the stool across from me, elbows on the high top, voice pitched for privacy. They're asking questions. Richard pulled me aside, wanted to know if the single narrative was intentional deception or just omission. What did you tell him? The truth. That I thought it would help me get ahead faster. That it was my idea, not yours. That, I'm sorry. I tilted my head. And was it enough? He didn't fire me on the spot. So maybe. But he said we'll talk Monday. Full transparency required going forward. Mark reached for my hand. I let him take it, though I didn't lace our fingers. Mia, I fucked up. I know that. I let the job become more important than us. But I never stopped loving you. I just compartmentalized. Compartmentalized me, I corrected softly. Into a drawer with the ring. He winced. Yes. And I hate that I did it. But seeing you walk in tonight, seeing everyone see you, it hit me how much I'd been hiding. Not just from them, from myself. The band struck up something upbeat. Couples moved to the floor around us. I watched them for a moment, the easy way they touched. No secrets between them. I didn't come here to humiliate you, I said. I came because I was tired of being erased. Tired of pretending I didn't exist so you could win a game I never agreed to play. I know. He swallowed. What happens now? I met his eyes. Really looked at him, past the panic, past the charm, to the man I'd loved since we were 20. That depends on you. If you want us, then we do this honestly. No more single act. No more blind dates you cancel. No more pretending I'm not part of your life. You tell them everything. How long we've been together. Why you hid it. That you're done with the charade. And if they punish you for it, we'll deal with that together. And if I can't, the question hung between us, small and terrified. I pulled my hand back slowly. Then I walk out of here tonight and I don't come back. Not to the apartment. Not to you. Because I deserve more than being someone's secret weapon. He stared at the table for a long time, thumb rubbing circles on the wood. When he looked up again, his eyes were wet, but steady. I'll tell them. All of it. Monday morning. First thing. And tonight. Tonight I dance with my fiancé. In front of everyone. No hiding. He stood, offered his hand. This time I took it. We moved to the floor as the music slowed again. His arms went around me properly now. No hesitation. No glancing around for witnesses. Heads turned. Whispers followed. But he held me closer, chin resting against my temple. I'm sorry, he murmured into my hair. I love you, and I'm going to prove it. Starting right now. I closed my eyes, let the music carry us, felt the ring press against his back through his jacket. The gala spun on around us, deals being made, champagne flowing, myths quietly crumbling. But in that moment, for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. And so was he. When the song ended, we didn't leave the floor. We stayed through the next one, and the one after that, dancing like people who had finally stopped running from the truth. Monday would bring consequences. Maybe a demotion, maybe awkward meetings, maybe nothing at all. But tonight was ours. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp, unforgiving sunlight that makes every shadow sharper and every decision feel irreversible. I woke before Mark, slipped out of bed while he was still breathing slow and even, and made coffee in the kitchen we'd remodeled together 2 years ago. The ring stayed on my finger. I didn't take it off to hide it anymore. When he emerged, hair still damp from the shower, tie knotted too tightly, he paused in the doorway, eyes flicking to my hand, then to my face. "You're coming with me?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "No. This is your conversation. But I'll be here when you get back. And if you walk through that door tonight still pretending I don't exist, then I won't be here tomorrow." He swallowed, nodded once, and left without breakfast. The apartment felt too quiet after the door clicked shut. I spent the morning pacing between rooms, replaying every possible outcome. Richard laughing it off as youthful ambition gone astray. Richard demoting him to junior accounts. Richard calling HR for a formal review on misrepresentation. I imagined Mark sitting in that glass walled office, palms sweating, explaining 3 years of calculated omission to men who'd built their own careers on similar half truths. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, the junior who'd been at the gala. "Hey, just wanted to say that took guts. Half the floor is talking about it. In a good way, mostly. Mark looks like he hasn't slept. You okay?" I typed back, "I'm okay. Ask me again in a week." She sent a thumbs up emoji and a small heart. It felt strangely comforting. Proof the ripple had spread beyond the ballroom. Mark didn't text all day. I tried not to read into the silence. Instead, I packed a small overnight bag, just in case, and left it by the door like insurance. At 6:47, the key turned in the lock. He stepped inside carrying a bakery box from the French place down the block and 2 paper cups of coffee. His tie was gone, top button undone, sleeves rolled to the elbows. He looked exhausted but not defeated. "They didn't fire me," he said before I could ask. I exhaled, tension uncoiling just enough to let me breathe. He set the box and coffees on the island, opened the lid to reveal 2 chocolate croissants and a small lemon tart, our favorites. Richard listened, didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he just sat there for a minute, then said, "You're not the first to play that card, Mark. You won't be the last. But you're the first one who walked in here today and owned it instead of doubling down." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "And," he said, "the single guy narrative is discouraged going forward. Not banned, but discouraged. They're sending out a firm wide memo next week about inclusive culture and authentic representation." Apparently, my little stunt accelerated their timeline. A small, incredulous laugh escaped me. "So you accidentally became the diversity poster child?" Mark gave a tired smile. "Something like that. No demotion, no pay cut. But I'm off the fast track for the next 6 months. They want me to rebuild trust with the team. Means more FaceTime with juniors, less solo hero pitches. And they want to meet you, officially. Dinner with Richard and his wife next month." I studied his face, really studied it. The lines around his eyes were deeper, but the panic from Friday night was gone, replaced by something quieter, more honest. "What did you tell them about us?" "Everything. How we met, how long we've been engaged, why I hid it, how much I regret it." I showed them the photo on my phone, the one from our engagement trip to Santorini, the one I kept in a hidden album. Richard looked at it for a long time and said, "She's beautiful and patient. Don't screw this up again." I felt heat rise behind my eyes but blinked it back. And the others? Mixed. Some of the old guard grumbled about changing the culture too fast. A couple of the juniors clapped when Richard announced the memo. Tyler texted me afterward. "Dude, respect. That was ballsy." Sarah sent me a gif of an exploding bachelor pad. He stepped closer, tentative. "Mia, I told them I'm done pretending. And I told them, if they ever make me choose between the firm and you again, I choose you." No hesitation. The words landed soft but solid, like stones settling into place. I reached out, touched his cheek. "You didn't have to say that part." I did. Because it's true. He covered my hand with his. "I spent 3 years treating our life like a side project. I'm not doing that anymore." We stood like that for a long minute, the bakery smells mingling with the faint scent of his cologne, the city humming beyond the windows. Finally, I pulled him into a hug. Proper, no holding back. He buried his face in my hair and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since Friday. When we separated, I picked up one of the coffees, took a sip. "So what now? We just go back to normal?" He shook his head. "Normal's overrated. We build something new. Starting with this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Not the old one from the nightstand, but a new one. Navy blue, tied with a thin silver ribbon. Inside was a new ring. Same diamond, reset in a delicate platinum band, with tiny sapphires on either side. My birthstone. "I stopped at the jeweler on the way home," he said. "The old setting felt tainted. This one's ours. Fresh start." I let him slide it onto my finger. It fit perfectly. "You're still wearing yours," I noted, glancing at his bare left hand. He smiled sheepishly. "I had them size 1 for me too. It's being resized. Should be ready next week." I laughed then, real surprised laughter, and pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like chocolate croissant, and relief and second chances. Later, we ate dinner on the couch, takeout Thai, no plates, feet tangled under a blanket, talking about everything and nothing. About the dinner with Richard, about telling our families the full story, about maybe finally planning a wedding instead of just wearing rings in secret. When the dishes were cleared and the lights dimmed, he looked at me across the room and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I walked over, sat in his lap, wrapped my arms around his neck. "Thank you for choosing us." Outside, the city lights glittered like scattered stars. Inside, for the first time in 3 years, there were no compartments, no hidden albums, no unspoken rules. Just us, visible, flawed, and finally together in the open. And that, we both knew, was worth every crack the truth had forced open. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm that felt both foreign and familiar, like stepping into a house you once lived in but someone else had redecorated while you were away. Mark started coming home at reasonable hours. No more, just one more call, that stretched until midnight. He left his work phone on silent during dinner, actually listened when I talked about my day at the design studio instead of nodding absently while scrolling emails. Small things, but they accumulated like interest in a long neglected account. We cooked together again, nothing fancy, just pasta with whatever was in the fridge, laughing when the sauce splattered, and arguing good naturedly over how much garlic was too much. The new ring on his finger caught the light every time he reached for the salt, a quiet reminder that the secrecy was over. He wore it proudly, twisting it when he was thinking, the way I used to when mine had been hidden away. One evening, about 10 days after the gala, we sat on the balcony overlooking the river, wrapped in the same blanket because November had turned sharp. The city lights reflected on the water in broken gold shards. Mark set his wine glass down and turned to me. "Richard called me into his office today." I tensed instinctively, even though I told myself I wouldn't. "And?" He asked if I'd be interested in leading the new diversity and inclusion initiative for client-facing teams. I blinked. "You're kidding." "Not kidding." Apparently, my personal growth moment at the gala made quite the impression. He said it showed integrity, owning a mistake instead of covering it up. They want someone who's lived the consequences to help shape the policy. More training on authentic representation, clearer guidelines on personal disclosures, mandatory partner inclusion at retreats. I laughed, soft and surprised. "So you went from bachelor myth to poster boy for honesty in under 2 weeks." He shrugged, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "Feels surreal, but it's good pay bump. And the hours are supposed to be more predictable. No more Aspen weekends without you." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "You're really doing this?" "I am. And I want you there for the kickoff meeting next month. As my +1. Officially." The invitation landed gently, no pressure, just an open hand. I kissed his cheek. "I'd like that." We stayed out there until the cold drove us inside, then curled up on the couch, with an old movie neither of us paid much attention to. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing, rings clicking softly together. No more hiding. The following Saturday, we drove to my parents' house in the suburbs. Our first joint visit since the truth came out. Mom had been texting me daily since I'd called to explain everything. Dad had stayed mostly silent, which was his way when he was processing. When we walked in, the smell of roasting chicken and rosemary hit us like a hug. Mom enveloped me first, then pulled Mark into a fierce embrace that left him blinking. "You idiot boy," she said fondly, swatting his arm. 3 years. I could have had grandchildren by now. Mark flushed. "I know, Mrs. Chen. I'm sorry. It's Mom now," she corrected. "And you're forgiven, mostly." Dad shook his hand, firm, no nonsense, then clapped him on the back. "Heard you came clean at a black tie event. Ballsy." Mark laughed, relieved, terrifying, actually. Dinner was loud, warm, full of stories. Mom retelling the time Mark tried to impress her by cooking stir fry and set off the smoke alarm. Dad asking pointed but not unkind questions about the firm's new direction. By dessert, Mom's famous mango pudding. Everyone was laughing, the air lighter than it had been in years. On the drive home, Mark was quiet for a long stretch. Then he said, "I think I get it now. Why you were so angry. It wasn't just about the lie. It was about feeling like I chose them over you." "It was," I admitted. "Every time you took off the ring, every time you laughed at a joke about being single, it felt like you were choosing the version of you they wanted instead of the one I loved." He reached over, squeezed my knee. "I won't do that again, promise." I believed him, not because the promise was perfect, but because he was finally saying it without qualifiers. The next week brought the dinner with Richard and his wife Evelyn. Their brownstone in the historic district smelled of beeswax and old books. Evelyn greeted me with a warm hug and a glass of Pinot before I even took my coat off. "I've been dying to meet the woman who finally dragged Mark into the light," she said, winking. Richard chuckled from the doorway. "She's not wrong. Dinner was easy. Stories about their own early marriage struggles. Richard admitting he'd once hidden a tattoo from his first boss because ink was for sailors and rock stars." Mark relaxed visibly, laughing more freely than I'd heard in months. Toward the end of the night, Richard raised his glass. "To new chapters, and to the people brave enough to rewrite them." We clinked. On the cab ride home, I rested my head on Mark's shoulder, watching the city blur past. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Better than okay." He kissed the top of my head. "Me too." Back in the apartment, we didn't rush to bed. We sat on the floor in the living room, backs against the couch, sorting through a box of old photos I'd pulled from storage. College snapshots, our first apartment, trips we'd taken before the lie took root. In every picture, we looked happy, unshadowed. Mark traced a finger over one of us on a beach at sunset, arms around each other, no rings visible because we hadn't needed them yet. "We're still those people," he said, "just older, and hopefully wiser." I leaned into him, definitely wiser. We stayed like that until the city quieted outside, talking about the future. Not the vague someday we used to lean on, but real plans. A wedding date next fall, maybe a house with a yard someday. Kids when we were ready. No timelines dictated by promotions or optics. Just us deciding together. When we finally went to bed, he pulled me close under the covers. No space between us. I love you, Mia. Not the secret version. The real one. I love you too, I whispered back. The real one. Sleep came easy that night, deep and dreamless. In the morning, we woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains, coffee brewing, the smell of a new day. No more secrets. No more compartments. Just two people who'd finally chosen each other. Out loud. In public. For good. Winter tightened its grip on the city as December rolled in, frosting the windows of our apartment and turning every breath outdoors into visible proof of life. Mark and I had fallen into a new routine that still felt fragile, like a plant recently repotted, thriving but needing careful watering. Mornings started together now, coffee brewed strong, toast shared at the island, quick kisses before he headed to the office and I to the studio. He texted me throughout the day, not the old perfunctory check ins, but real messages. A photo of the snow dusted river from his window, a meme about bad office coffee that made me laugh out loud at my drafting table, a simple, thinking of you, at 3 p.m. when the workday dragged. Small proofs that the shift was sticking. One Saturday, we decided to finally tackle the wedding planning we'd avoided for so long. We spread printouts across the living room floor, venue options, color palettes, guest lists scribbled on legal pads, and sat cross legged amid the chaos like teenagers planning a prom instead of adults who'd already been engaged for years. Mark held up a photo of a small vineyard an hour outside the city. What about here? Late September next year. Fall colors. Not too hot. Intimate enough that we won't feel like we're performing for strangers. I traced the image with my finger. The golden rows of vines, the wooden arbor draped in white roses. It's beautiful. And quiet. I like quiet. He grinned. No 300-person black tie ballroom? God, no. I want people who actually know us. And I want to wear something comfortable enough to dance in without regretting it at midnight. We laughed, remembering the gala and how my feet had ached in those stilettos by the end of the night. We kept going. Simple menu, family style Italian. Nothing fussy. Live acoustic music instead of a DJ. No elaborate favors. Just small jars of local honey with our initials tied on ribbon. Every choice felt like reclaiming territory we'd once surrendered to his career. By late afternoon, the floor was covered in decisions, and we were both a little giddy from too much coffee and the rare sensation of moving forward together. Mark pulled me onto his lap amid the papers. We're really doing this. We are. I rested my forehead against his. No more waiting for the right time at work. The right time is now, he said, kissing me softly. Has been for years. That evening, we called our closest friends, 6 of them total, the ones who'd known us before Pinnacle, before the lie took root, and invited them over for an impromptu engagement reveal dinner. They arrived bearing wine, curiosity, and zero surprise. Jess, my college roommate, hugged me tight at the door. About damn time you stopped hiding this man. Mark laughed from the kitchen, stirring risotto. I deserved that. We ate at the dining table we rarely used, candles flickering, stories flowing freely. They teased Mark mercilessly about his bachelor era, the blind dates he'd dodged, the Tinder profiles he'd never actually used, the way he'd once claimed to be allergic to commitment at a happy hour. He took it with good grace, even adding details they hadn't known. How he'd kept a photo of us as his phone lock screen behind a fake weather app. How he'd drive home every night feeling guilty but too deep in the role to climb out. When the teasing eased, Jess raised her glass, to Mark for finally growing a spine, and to Mia for having the patience of a saint and the timing of a sniper. Everyone drank. Later, when the last guest left and the apartment was quiet again, Mark and I stood at the sink washing dishes side by side. Soap suds slid down my arms. His shoulder brushed mine every time he reached for a plate. That felt good, he said, telling them everything, no filters. It did. I handed him a towel. No more filters anywhere. He dried his hands, then turned to face me. There's one more thing. He reached into the drawer where we kept takeout menus and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a single ticket to Aspen, departing in February. It's the executive retreat. They invited partners this year. Officially. I told Richard I'd only go if you came with me. I stared at the ticket, then at him. You're serious. Dead serious. No more solo trips. No more single guy closes deals. If they want me there, they get both of us. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Pride, relief, a quiet triumph. I'd love to go, but only if we ski badly together and drink too much hot chocolate. He laughed. Deal. We went to bed early that night, tangled under heavy blankets, talking in murmurs about the vineyard, the guest list, the honeymoon we hadn't planned yet. His hand rested over mine, rings touching, warm skin against warm skin. No space between us, no secrets. Just the slow, steady rebuilding of a life we'd almost lost to convenience. Outside, snow fell in thick, silent flakes, covering the city in white. Inside, we slept deeply, dreaming separately but waking to the same reality. We had chosen each other again, this time without hesitation, without compromise. And that choice, no longer whispered, no longer hidden, felt like the strongest promise either of us had ever made. February brought a brief thaw to the city, the kind that melts snow into slushy rivers along every curb and tricks everyone into thinking spring might arrive early. Mark's Aspen ticket had turned into 2 seats side by side. We packed light, warm layers, one nice outfit each, and the kind of optimism that comes from knowing you're no longer traveling under separate aliases. The retreat was held at a sprawling lodge tucked into the mountains, all timber beams and roaring fireplaces, the air sharp with pine and the promise of fresh powder. When we checked in, the front desk clerk glanced at our matching last names on the reservation, then at our joined hands, and smiled without comment. No raised eyebrows, no awkward questions. Just, welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, your suite is ready. We exchanged a quick look. Neither of us corrected her, and took the key. The first evening was casual. Welcome drinks in the great room, partners mingling with spouses for the first time in company history. Richard spotted us immediately, crossed the room with Evelyn on his arm, and pulled Mark into a one-armed hug that looked almost paternal. You brought her, he said, turning to me with genuine warmth. Good man. Evelyn squeezed my hand. We've been waiting to meet the woman who finally cracked the code. We laughed, accepted glasses of mulled wine, and let the conversation flow. Around us, other couples did the same. Some newly introduced, some long hidden like us. A junior analyst I recognized from Mark's team approached shyly with his girlfriend. She looked as relieved as I felt. I thought I was the only one, she whispered to me while the men talked shop. Turns out we were all waiting for someone to go first. Mark overheard, glanced at me, and smiled. The small private one that used to be reserved for late night confessions in our apartment. She went first, he said. I just followed. The days passed in a rhythm of panels, team building hikes through snow dusted trails, and evenings around the fire where stories were shared without filters. Mark led one session on authentic leadership, speaking candidly about the single guy myth, the pressure to perform a role that didn't fit, and the cost of maintaining it. He didn't name me directly, but everyone knew. When he finished, the room applauded, not politely, but with real appreciation. A few people came up afterward to thank him. One senior partner admitted he'd done something similar early in his career and regretted the years it stole from his family. I watched from the back row, proud in a way that felt new and steady. On the last night, there was a formal dinner, candlelit tables overlooking the slopes, string lights twinkling against the dark pines. Mark wore the suit he'd bought for the gala, the same one he'd stood frozen in when I walked through those ballroom doors. This time, though, he reached for my hand across the table without hesitation, thumb brushing over my ring. During dessert, Richard stood to give a toast to new traditions, he said, raising his glass, to bringing the whole person to work, not just the version we think wins deals, and to the partners who remind us what we're really working for. Eyes turned our way, glasses lifted. Mark leaned close. That's because of you. I shook my head. Because of us. We danced after dinner. Slow, unhurried, the band playing something soft and familiar. His hand rested low on my back, mine curled against his chest. No glances over shoulders, no worry about who might see. Just us, moving together in a room full of people who finally knew the truth and didn't mind. On the flight home the next morning, heads resting against each other as the plane climbed above the clouds, Mark pulled out his phone and opened the wedding planning folder we'd started. September 23rd, he said. Vineyard confirmed. Deposit paid yesterday. I smiled against his shoulder. You didn't tell me. Wanted it to be a surprise. Our first real one in years. The city appeared below us soon after, gray and glittering, home in all its imperfect glory. When we landed and stepped into the terminal, phones buzzing with work emails and family texts, Mark didn't let go of my hand. We walked out together, suitcases rolling beside us, rings catching the fluorescent light. Back in the apartment that evening, we unpacked slowly, hanging clothes, sorting souvenirs, a small pine cone from our hike, a bottle of local wine we'd bought on impulse. Mark set the pine cone on the windowsill where it caught the last of the winter sun. Remember when we used to hide everything? He asked quietly. I nodded. Feels like another life. He pulled me close. It was. This one's better. We stood there a long time watching snow begin to fall again outside. Soft, steady, covering the tracks we'd made coming home. No more secrets to bury under white. No more pretending. Just the quiet certainty that we'd chosen each other. Out loud, in public, through every season. And that choice had finally brought us here. Visible, whole, and unafraid of whatever came next. September 23rd arrived wrapped in the soft gold of early autumn. The vineyard air thick with the scent of ripening grapes and sun-warmed earth. The rows stretched out in orderly lines toward distant hills, leaves just beginning to blush red at the edges, as though the vines themselves had dressed for the occasion. We'd kept it small, 80 guests total, mostly family, the college friends who'd known us before the lie, a handful of colleagues from Pinnacle who'd become real friends after the truth came out. No elaborate seating chart, no rigid timeline, just a wooden arbor strung with white roses and fairy lights, a long table under an open tent for dinner, and the promise of music that would last until the stars came out. I woke that morning in the small guest cottage we'd rented for the weekend. Sunlight slanting through lace curtains onto the white dress hanging on the door. It was simple, ivory silk, off the shoulder, flowing skirt that moved like water when I walked. No train, no veil, just a pair of delicate gold sandals, and the ring Mark had reset for me. Now joined by a thin wedding band he'd slipped onto my finger the night before, in a private moment on the porch. He'd worn his suit already, charcoal gray, no tie, when he knocked softly and stepped inside. His eyes went soft the second he saw me in the dress. You look, he trailed off, swallowed. Like the rest of my life. I laughed, stepped into his arms. You clean up nice yourself. We didn't rush. We sat on the edge of the bed, hands linked, listening to the distant sounds of setup, chairs being arranged, string quartet tuning, laughter drifting up from the lawn. Nervous? I asked. He shook his head. Not about this. Not about us. I was nervous every day I pretended you didn't exist. This feels right. Down on the lawn, guests began to gather. Mom fussed over floral arrangements she'd insisted on helping with. Dad stood beside her, hands in pockets, smiling quietly. Jess and the college crew clustered near the bar, already toasting with mimosas. Richard and Evelyn arrived last, Richard carrying a small wrapped gift, Evelyn in a deep emerald dress that matched the one I'd worn to the gala 3 years earlier. She hugged me tight. Full circle, she whispered. And so much better this time. The ceremony was short, held under the arbor as the sun dipped lower. No long vows recited from notes, just the promises we'd made to each other in quiet moments over the past year. Mark spoke first, voice steady but thick. I spent too long hiding the best part of my life, because I thought the world rewarded half truths. You never let me forget that love isn't something to compartmentalize. You waited, you fought, you walked into a room full of strangers, and made me choose. And I will choose you every day for the rest of my life. No more secrets, no more shadows, just us, out in the open, where we belong. I felt tears slip free but didn't wipe them away. I loved you when you were pretending, and I love you more now that you've stopped. You taught me patience. You taught me what it means to rebuild. Today I promise to keep choosing the truth with you, no matter how messy, no matter how public. Because the life we build together is worth every crack we had to walk through to get here. Rings exchanged, simple platinum bands engraved with the date we first met in that library. The officiant smiled. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Mark kissed me. Slow, sure, surrounded by applause and wolf whistles from Jess and Tyler. We lingered there a moment, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. Then the music started, soft acoustic guitar giving way to something upbeat, and people spilled onto the makeshift dance floor of mowed grass. Dinner followed, platters of pasta, roasted vegetables, bread still warm from the oven. Toasts came one after another. Dad's quiet pride, Mom's tearful joy, Richard's dry humor about how Mark had accidentally revolutionized firm culture. Jess ended hers with, to the couple who took 3 years to get here and still managed to make it look effortless. Laughter rolled across the table. Later, under the stars, we danced again. Barefoot now, my dress brushing the grass, his jacket discarded over a chair. The fairy lights glowed above us. Fireflies blinked in the vines. Mark pulled me close. Happy? He murmured. More than I knew how to be. He spun me once, slow, then drew me back in. No regrets? None, I said. Every wrong turn got us here. Around us the night unfolded. Friends laughing, family hugging, music drifting into the cool air. No one asked about the past 3 years, except in gentle, passing ways. The story had become just that, a story, not the defining one. We stayed until the last guest left, then walked hand in hand back to the cottage, the vineyard quiet except for crickets and the faint rustle of leaves. Inside, we didn't rush to anything. We sat on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket, watching the moon rise over the hills. Mark rested his head on mine. We made it, he said softly. We did. No more hiding. No more waiting. Just the two of us, married, visible, whole, under the same wide sky we'd always shared, finally seeing each other without anything in between. And in that quiet, perfect moment, the past felt small, the future wide open, and the present exactly where we were meant to be.